Hello, hello. Here we are again, coming to you from Broadcast Team Alpha with the Paranormal World Show. And my name is Aage, and we're coming to you from 44 different platforms around the world. And one of them is the Conscious Awakening Network. You got to go over and have a look at those guys because they got close to 50 different shows over there about all kinds of stuff that we're not supposed to know about. So go have a look at it. Find them at consciousawakeningnetwork.org. And if you want to get a hold of me or Nori, then you go to broadcastteamalpha.com. Send us a note. There's a contact feature there, so we'll get the email and we'll get back to you whatever we see we can help you with. And today, I want to talk about the details of a signed treaty, of an agreement, more so probably, between an extraterrestrial race and a US president, which he did on the behalf of the people of Earth, namely the Griada Treaty. And this story has much controversy around it because it is really hard to believe. But all the indication show that it is. It would be in a category many levels above top secret called cosmic top secret clearance. And obviously, the governments, they will deny all the indication of it as being in existence. Of course they are. The issue is that it appears that President Eisenhower met with an extraterrestrial race on at least a couple of different occasions, and he signed a treaty with one of the races. Now, these were extraterrestrials that came here. And there was one of the races that they knew about at that time that they signed the treaty. And he traded our lives, our privacy, and safety in return for extraterrestrial technology and teachings. Now, the biggest reason for the denial of the cover-up, it's been going on for decades, probably twofold. The treaty, so-called treaty, was strictly illegal, unlawful, and will be absolutely null and void on its face the day that they signed it. Treaties has to be approved by joint houses of Congress, and he was the only one there to sign it. That was illegal. And of course, another reason is that we may have figured it out by now that most presidents, they are puppets for the money machine behind the presidency and politicians and so on, behind society, like oil companies, medical establishment, science at the higher institutions of learning and such things. Let me from the beginning start right there, as it's said to have happened. I will shorten it down as much as I can without leaving out a lot of the important stuff. On February 20th, 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower had to go on a real short, quick vacation trip. It is in his scheduled records. During the first night, he disappeared. No one knew where he was. The newswire even released a statement saying that he died overnight. They later retracted that, of course, when he surfaced again. The rumor is that Late in the evening, he was eating fried chicken, and he lost a cap on one of his front teeth. Because of that, he was supposed to have left and gone to see a dentist. And he did not make it back and before early the next day to his vacation residence before, anybody discovered him. Whereupon he also went directly to church. What whistleblowers and witnesses are saying is that the first visit by extraterrestrials, he was taken to Edwards Air Force Base, where he had a meeting that was called Muroc Airfield, Army Airfield back then. That's where it was arranged for him to have a meeting with several extraterrestrials from a solar systems in the Pleiades. They wanted to set up a treaty or a cooperation agreement between themselves and us here of Earth. The extraterrestrials, they looked just like us, with yellowish blonde hair, blue eyes, and looking like Scandinavians or Russians, Swedes maybe. They kind of all look the same. And that is why they have been dubbed the Nordics. They were friendly and showed concern for us Earthlings. They told Eisenhower that we were on a dangerous path and most likely would end up destroying ourselves. They explained there was a different way, and if we agreed, they would come here and show us how to set up a society with higher spiritual values and advanced technologies. We would be a peaceful society with no disease, no poverty, and where people would live in harmony and with nature and each other. But there was one condition. Yeah, there would be one condition. And that is that we had to let go of and abolish our nuclear weapons because it was too risky to even have them. With the Cold War ramping up, Eisenhower could not do that. He wanted technology, but he would want to weaponize it. Therefore, he could not agree to the Pleiadians' demand of abolishing nuclear weapons. Of course, the Nordics also warned the president about doing any agreement with the Greys or other species. They said they could not be trusted. I'm sure there were several considerations that made him make that decisions. The Cold War ramping up. If we gave up the nukes, the Russians would still have it. Now that probably would not have turned out very well for us. I'm also sure that Standard Oil and other oil companies they would take a dim view of him allowing extraterrestrials to come here and bring forward free energy, which the extraterrestrials had. Now, there are records of schedules and testimonies showing that approximately a year later, President Eisenhower and his airplane landed at Holloman Air Force Base in the desert of New Mexico. At the same time, 3 flying discs arrived. One of them landed next to the president's airplane, but 2 were hovering nearby. There was a meeting between the president and an extraterrestrial group that we call the Greys. He was invited on board the ship. They had the discussion. and he was shown around the ship. He was impressed. Now, President Eisenhower appeared to have made an agreement with the tall grays. This agreement was called the Griada Treaty. Greada Treaty. You should Google it and do some research on your own on this one. We must also remember that a treaty like this was absolutely illegal and was null and void from the time that they signed it. It appears now, many decades later, that there are millions of people who have been abducted and have implants or alien human hybrid children even. My opinion is that the president's, to the president's credit actually, he knew they were already doing all these abductions and they would continue whether he agreed or not. He may have thought that to get within their circle and have a little control would be good. At the same time, he would get some technology out of it. From the notes and from stories surfacing from the meetings with the treaty, it states that it was agreed that they would only work with President Eisenhower and his country and make no agreement or treaty with any other nation of Earth. It was also agreed that they were in need of human DNA because they were on the backside of the evolutionary curve and needed to replenish their own DNA with our DNA. They came from a planet in a solar system we call Betelgeuse. Their star was dying and the radiation was so strong that they thought if they did not replenish themselves, their species would die out. Therefore, they wanted to abduct humans, harvest DNA, and do medical experiments, including hybridization of human and extraterrestrials. The agreement was also that the extraterrestrial have to give us the names of everyone that was abducted. The names was to be handed over to a newly established group called Majestic 12. We call it MJ12. And that group will follow up with the people that was abducted. In return for this, they would give us extraterrestrial technology and help us develop it. Now, the agreement was that they would never be involved in any other political or military or societal affairs on Earth. The extraterrestrial would also coexist with our military and scientists in safe locations where they could work with us and help us or teach us some of the stuff they knew. Some more background, I think, is needed to put more credibility to this case. First, there is information passed down in generational steps within the family of the Eisenhowers, all the way down to his granddaughter, Laura Eisenhower. She told me the meetings did happen. She said her grandfather did the best he could to stay in the loop and have some control. Laura Eisenhower is a friend of mine, and I totally believe her. She has paid a high price for speaking of this family secret. She was ostracized and expelled from the family, and more and other things have also happened that is not necessarily good for her. though they tried to remove her from Earth by inviting her or pressuring her to join the secret space program and the breakaway society on Mars, and for her to move there. And she decided not to. Yes, there are bases there on Mars. Somebody needs to tell Elon. Another thing that points in the direction of this story being real is that there was a general named Mount. I'm not sure if I actually pronounced that right. Now, he stated in part of an article published in the Borderline Science Research Association on April 16, 1954, he said that he was part of a small group together with President Eisenhower that met with extraterrestrials at Edwards Air Force Base. That was Morak Army Airfield back then, you know. There are other whistleblowers who said they were there at the airbase and they saw the ships. And then also, Philip Corso confirms the story. He worked closely under President Eisenhower and had access to him all the time. Another, Bill Cooper, a Navy intelligence officer with the highest clearance and later radio personality, he said that he read highly classified documents proving Eisenhower did have the meetings with the extraterrestrials. Bill Cooper also said that in 1953, they were scanning space for anomalies and found several city-sized objects heading for Earth. At first, they thought they were asteroids, but they found they were not following gravitational trajectories, so they had to be spaceships. A little later, they found the ships entered an equatorial high orbit around Earth. Then there was a highly classified project, Project Plato. You should Google that one too. That was created to try to make contact with the people they thought were on these ships. And also they were used to monitor other UFO activities, crashes and things like that. Now, this group, Project Plato, answered directly to Majestic 12, MJ12. The military did make contact, first through radio communication, and a meeting was arranged and resulted in a landing by the extraterrestrials. It appears from the data I have seen that these ships were controlled by the tall grays and resulted in a second landing. That resulted in the treaty, or the agreement, since the treaty was unlawful. And that's where the abductions and the medical experiments on humans were normalized and agreed to. Over the years, up to 1963, the government knew of at least 4 different extraterrestrial races coming here to visit. One of them looked just like us. You could be sitting next to them in a restaurant and you would never know the difference. Another was the tall white. Now, they would raise some eyebrows because they are totally white skin, very thin and slender, 7 to 8 foot tall, and very suspicious of humans. A third race was a reptilian race. They have scaly skin and somewhat brownish greenish in color. And then, of course, the grays. And I think we all have seen pictures of those. The tall grays are the ones that make decisions. The little short grays, 3 foot tall ones, they are just the worker bees. They are grown in vats. They have more in common with a plant than they do with a human. This was told to us by Bob Dean. He worked under the NATO Supreme Commander of the Allied forces in Europe in 1963, and he had a cosmic top secret clearance. He confirmed the meetings by Eisenhower and other contacts since. Yeah, this story is so far out there, it's really hard to believe. I'm not trying to convince anybody, especially if you're still watching TV, because then you are asleep. There are different levels of being asleep, all the way from passed out, snoring, watching mainstream news to, maybe there is something to what the conspiracy fact theorists are talking about. If you get to that point, you need to look deeper into it. Please do your own research. The truth is not laying on the surface. You got to dig for it. Much of it is covered up with lies. If you really want to know what is going on and read mankind's true history, how to stay healthy into high age, and use your mind in ways you normally would think would be impossible, you should consider reading a book. And I forgot to take it down from the shelf, so I'm going to get it and I'm going to show it to you. Yeah, it's this one. Spiritual Science, Higher Conscious Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness. Now, the knowledge in this book will lead you to higher conscious thinking. If you engage higher conscious thinking and action, you will do great things. So go to Amazon, put my name in the title, and the book will come up. Read the subjects in the book, and then you will decide. Anyway, if you like what you have heard here, please subscribe. It will help us a lot. And then I would say, until next time,